Hey everybody, Jeff Tidwell here with another one of my tweet videos for you today. It is Saturday, May 16th, 2020, and we are diving back into the past, going to tweets from July 2019. As always, I can be found on Twitter at RealJeffTidwell. I'm also on Gab, Minds, Parler, Telegram, and Instagram. If you're not watching this video on BitChute, you're watching it on YouTube. Thank you very much for watching. Of course, if you enjoy the content, please do like and subscribe. Hit the little bell below for notifications. And please do leave me a comment below as well with your thoughts and observations. If you find my cadence to be a little bit on the slow side, you can hit the 2x speed button and get all of the information in half of the time. Time is the currency, of course, and that is double bang for your buck. So, without further ado, let's get into these tweets for today. We're going to analyze them, break them down, do all the things we usually do on Jeff Tidwell's channel. So the first tweet we're dealing with today, the first one we're going to go over and ponder, is called 10 Sentences for Winning Debates. The first one, fuck off. Fuck off. The second, you're not using that word correctly. You're not using that word correctly. This is how you win debates. You're just another negative term. You have bad associations. You have been wrong before. Stay in your lane. Fact, truth, science, period. Or have an argument. It's pretty simple. If you want to win a debate, you can have an argument. Or you can use one of these pro tips, these 10 sentences for winning debates. So let's go through them. I don't want to just give a tip and then not explain it. So the first one here, to win a debate, you say, fuck off. Yeah, just stonewall them. Get them out of your feed. Block them. Mute them. Tell them to fuck off. Because, hey, you can't lose a debate if you don't play, right? You can't win. Can't lose. But, hey, sometimes people just aren't worth the time. Am I right? If time is the currency, then, well, fuck off could save you a whole lot of time. And them, your debating partner. The second sentence for winning debates, you're not using that word correctly. So, of course, if you are truly not using that word correctly, you can go and type in this website address called google.com, google.com, or DuckDuckGo, and find the dictionary, dictionary.com, Wikipedia. You can find the definitions of words online. But here's the rub. Even if you are using that word correctly, the odds are that the person that says you aren't probably just disagrees with your opinion. And even if you explain yourself and say, hey, you know, here's how I'm using the word. That's good. That's clarification, and I do recommend it, of course. But the odds are you're using that word just fine. And if you're not, well, check out Google. You're just another negative term. So instead of having an argument, well, they might go into ethos and just say, look, we've labeled you this. This is your designation. And, hey, you're just another negative term. Whatever negative modifier you want to throw on up to a person to tell others, and to convince yourself, frankly, and to tell the person, you're just this. For example, we always talk about the word bigot. You're just the bigot. Or you're just another liberal. You're just another conservative. You're just another NAP-following libertarian. Well, they'll just throw a word at you. They might say you're uncultured or you're just stupid. You're an idiot. You're an idiot. You're just another moron. Hey, you can win a debate that way. When they walk away, assume victory. So there's that. You have bad associations. So this goes in tandem with the last one. Some of the people that you associate with, some of the communities you're a part of, some of the things you like, and the places you've put yourself online, wherever you might be. You know this person, therefore I can't talk to you. You have negative or bad associations. How can I ever hope to have an intellectual dialogue with you? You have bad associations. I don't want to be associated with you. I could fall under guilt by association or guilt by conversation, which is what I'm applying to you right now. So, hey, better to avoid the risk. The next three are you. It's all about you. It's not about your argument. It's not about what you're saying. It's not about what we're debating. It's all about you. You've said something wrong in the past. In fact, that's the next one. You have been wrong before. I don't make any space for the possibility that maybe you've learned from your mistakes, maybe you've studied where you went wrong before. All I know is you were wrong before. Therefore, I don't have to listen to you. Because, hey, what if you're wrong again? After all, the future is determined. We live in a deterministic universe where everything is already set in stone. There's no changing the future. Of course, we can always change the past by rewriting history, but the future, well, it's already set. It's like Sarah Connor from Terminator 2. Judgment Day says, well, actually, she says, we have no fate to make. Okay, maybe that wasn't a great example, but hey, we're trying to help you win debates here. I have been wrong before, just like that example. Therefore, you shouldn't listen to me. Therefore, well, that means you win the debate. So the next one, out of the 10 sentences for winning debates, number 9. John Lennon would approve. Stay in your lane. Stay in your lane. Because, hey, you're not qualified to speak on this matter. You don't work in this job. You don't have the credentials. On this channel, we don't tend to preach credentialism. But for this tweet, context counts. We'll preach credentialism. Stay in your lane. You are not an expert. You haven't done any research. And most importantly, you don't have this thing we call common sense. You just don't have it. And I know there's the Gell-Mann amnesia effect, but it doesn't matter. Stay in your lane. And finally, fact, truth, science, period. That's right. I can win a debate just by saying one word. If I say something and follow it with the word fact, well, it's a fact, right? It's a fact. And with that fact in mind, well, you'd best mosey on out of here if you know it's good for you. And then there's, of course, truth. Truth. I'll say a phrase and follow it up with truth. And therefore, What do you think's going to happen? It's the truth. That's right. I've closed the door. Fact, truth. Science. I am pro-science. You are anti-science. Try that one on somebody sometime. See how it rolls off the tongue. It just might work. Because science is on your side. Science. Even if you're providing an incomplete picture of the scientific equations and the world established scientifically in this scenario, as long as you have, one, maybe two facts on your side, you can go, hey, science, period. That's right. Period is the strongest one of all. Because then you just say, period. We are never going to open up the country again. As you know, we are coming to you from quarantine. We're never opening the country again. Period. Or we're opening it right now. Period. As long as you add period, well, the odds are you're going to win that debate. Or, if you'd like to eschew all of the 10 sentences for winning debates, which I don't recommend, definitely take advice from a YouTuber and a BitChute personality. You don't want to ignore or deny this advice, but if you do, you can always have an argument. And that way, well, I don't know. Your mileage may vary. I can't in good conscience advise that or advocate for that. But hey, if you have a good argument, maybe you can win. All right. Moving on. So here's a tweet about the information age. In the information age, promotion became free through the advent of the internet. Time became the currency. More money, more time. What is time? Moving on. What is the currency of the next age? Is it Bitcoin? Jaden Smith's smash new LP? Nepotism? Thanks, and please leave me a comment below. So, in the information age, promotion became free through the advent of the internet. So, of course, we are now in the full-on, I would call it late-stage information age, in which everybody, for the most part, if they choose to, has access to a computer, to a smartphone, or otherwise is accessing the internet. Now, I know some of our senior citizens, of course, they haven't moved on into the digital realm. My grandmother, rest in peace, Grandma, never actually, we had to really try hard to get her to get a touch-tone phone, if you can understand that. So she never really moved on into this digital realm that we have found ourselves in, that you're watching this on right now. But a lot of people, even elderly people, even the people that are less advantaged, everybody has access to this one great resource. And it's called, well, unless you live in a rural area with low internet coverage, the internet. The interweb. And through the internet, yes, we do pay fees to get online. There are free services for ISPs, internet service providers, but we do generally just pay our fee and then whatever services we want, Netflix or Disney Plus or Amazon Prime, whatever we're subscribed to, may it be an individual content creator or someone using an app like Locals that allows you to monetize your work. We have a lot of different options for monetizing ourselves on the internet. I do have a new video out, deplatforming, depersoning, demonetizing, debanking deplorable. Check that out on BitChute and YouTube for an angle on the demonetization and demonetization that involves the modern religion of censorship. So we have this resource that generally everybody, it's a modern public square, it's a large place of commerce and information sharing. You can go on an epistemological journey using the internet, but you can also make a whole lot of money. But with people that are, using ad revenue, for example, and of course if you're censored, they'll tell you it's not the algorithm, it's the advertisers. But we don't want to talk about just censorship right now. We want to talk about potential. We want to be positive, optimistic, and not talk about the dark side of the internet commerce and capitalism. So time became the currency because people are providing a free service. Back in the day, my grandmother used to say, well, you pay $0.25 to go to the theater, and they'd give you the drink for free, and they'd give you popcorn. Popcorn was a nickel. So even 70, 75 years ago, it was 25 cents you were paying to pay for this service, this movie, this entertainment that you were taking part in and observing and enjoying. And now you pay one set fee to your ISP, and things like this video here are essentially free. So at that point, you've kind of removed money from the equation. We all have access to the internet for the most part. Of course, many of us are less advantaged in that regard across the entire world. I do hope that one day we can all move to the digital realm, so wars of weaponry and military and death and destruction can end, and we can go into the world of ideas. Check out my video, The War of Ideas. But time is the currency. You have to invest, time. They say time is money, of course, that's the cliche. But you have to invest your time in watching a certain content creator, or, taking time to look at whatever you're looking at, maybe social media, maybe you're reading a website, reading articles on thehill.com, wherever you might be, you're putting your time in. And you're not paying money, essentially. You're not, unless you're subscribed. After the ISP fee, it's all free. More money, more time. And then I asked this, at the time it was kind of a pseudo-profound question, but it was also kind of satirical. I say, what is time? What is time? Time is moving on. The only thing that stays constant is change. And for the optimistic and the positive thinkers among us, hope. So, moving on, what is the currency of the next age? Bitcoin? Jaden Smith's smash new LP? Nepotism? Well, this is a great question because right now we're in a transitional period in this country of the United States of America and this world. Because we have this little thing, it's called coronavirus, also known as COVID-19. Now, I'm sure if this video has not been removed already, it may be permanently demonetized for saying some of these terms. I've also referred to it as the China virus, so there's certainly other ways you can talk about it that may or may not be affected by the algorithm or the censors. So, but we have this situation where the world economy and the economies of individual countries are being essentially reformatted. The value of things is changing. We're finding companies that are no longer necessarily incentivized to have office space. So the real estate industry is changing. We have a lot of money being printed. Of course, when you create money, you inflate the money, you inflate currency. For the most part, if you have any exceptions to the rule, leave a comment below, please. Like I say in the bottom of this tweet. But we're seeing the price of oil go down. Oil used to be, we used to have this thing called the petrodollar. Now it's becoming, you know, certain types of oil, crude, unrefined, all these different types of oils are being, the prices are all over the place. They used to be essentially money, you know, and now we're seeing a change in the value of oil. Gold has been changing quite a bit. I have a couple of friends that invest in gold. They invest in the stock market. They invest in all these different kinds of currencies and different materials and things. Silver is out there as well. And then you have this entire other world called cryptocurrency. So with the internet, we also have cryptocurrency, which is generally used to trade between people that generate content or make products for the internet. You have Bitcoin, Litecoin, and all these other things. I know that Scott Adams, his company, has the When token. Check out Scott Adams Says on Twitter. I like to watch his periscopes. So you have all these different currencies, and of course I throw in a joke here. Jaden Smith's smash new LP, Nepotism, because, well, the only way that Jaden Smith could ever get a job is through corruption, family corruption, nepotism. Hey, Jaden, I love you, man. You got a great heart. You're an artistic soul, but I'm sorry, bro. Your dad got the magic, and you, well, you're just living in his shadow. So it happens. It happens. We never hear about Michael Jordan's son, right? And how many times do you actually hear good things about Donald Trump's children? Maybe Ivanka once in a while, but frankly, you know, sometimes the apple doesn't fall from the tree. It doesn't fall far from the tree. In your case, well, it probably fell into a gully somewhere and it's lost. So, thanks, and please leave me a comment below. So, we certainly have a lot of questions about what's going to happen next. How is the world economy going to reform now that we see that people are staying in their homes, quarantined? What is the currency of the next age? When is the golden age coming? The age after the information age? Will cryptocurrency be the one thing that continues to rise in value and people begin to adopt it? They put aside fiat currency and say, you know, hey, we got this thing called blockchain. Could be. And I've talked quite often, when I talked about customer service in a past video, I talked about how I do believe that in the future, the next 20 or 30 years, it'll become increasingly important to be able to present yourself on camera, to be persuasive, to have charm, to have personality. Because frankly, we're seeing a lot of automation in the world. We're seeing a lot of computers taking over certain positions, certain jobs. And we're not going to see that entirely. It's not, you know, there is, like I say in my video and tweet, Robotany, check it out, we control the flow of how automation advances. We are the ones that can say, you know, as corporations are people, of course. Corporations can say, look, we're not going to fire everybody just because we have a slightly cheaper option. I think there's definitely some empathy there, as long as they're not looking at just the bottom line. It would be wise not to piss off your customer base by doing things that are just anti-human. Like if you want to get into the matrix, if you want to be in the digital age and see computers as people and say that, like, look, you know, we don't need you. We need you as a customer. Otherwise, sit down and shut up. It doesn't really work. Not on a grand scale. So I ask that as an open question. What is the next big currency? What is the next big industry that will open up and maybe accelerated by the coronavirus and how we've move to a more safer, healthier world where we're focusing on hygiene and making sure that we're keeping ourselves safe. We're taking care of ourselves in a way that we hadn't been doing for many years. And the whole work from home revolution, I mean, I'm sure that about 20 to 30% of the people that were asked or mandated to work from home may be working from home forever. Because, again, like, why would you have a building that could, and I kind of hate this reality of it, about people worrying about, we can never go back to work. We can never go back to what we were doing. We can't do stadiums, or we can't have large public gatherings anymore. I don't like that. But we have to at least brace for the possibility that we'll have changes in that regard. And there might be small changes because there's so many ways you can slow the spread. You don't have to, that you can take different risks in different areas. That doesn't have to be one size fits all. I think the idea of one size fits all is in fact pretty regressive to American values. So we'll see. It could be Bitcoin. Bitcoin might have a resurgence. Ask John McAfee about that for sure. All right. Much like time, let's move on. Okay. So here is a named tweet. It's called Finding God. Finding God. Moral panic is a modern religion. In the absence of universal truth, the devoutly secular tell post-truth stories. In lieu of a deity's divinity and authority, postmodern dogma. Post-truth stories, postmodern dogma. A New Testament. Mass hysteria? That's a proving ground for moral virtue. Choose your own Satan. Choose your own Satan. So, finding God. I'd like to state up front that I am agnostic. I used to be an atheist when I was in my 20s, so now I consider myself to be agnostic. And that includes not only traditional religion, like Christianity or Islam, Judaism, Buddhism, Hindu. That's traditional religion. But then you also have modern religion. Check out my video, Modern Religions for Postmodern Prophets, for more information on that. But you have your postmodern ideologies, your belief systems that aren't necessarily to do with theology. Of course, whenever I talk about modern religion, I always get that question, well, how is social justice a religion? And I say it's not a religion. It's a modern religion. Just like censorship, global warming, institutions, which include academia, media, and state, and of course, as we're discussing in this tweet, moral panic. We also have outrage culture and celebrity. And I usually throw statistics in there just to add another layer, another frame, you may say, regarding placing faith over reason, since statistics are so easily manipulated and, of course, can be used to persuade we put our faith in this singular set of numbers when there might be a much larger picture of, as my friend Orlando might say, data points. There are many more data points out there, and sometimes statistics, as a modern religion, can be used to manipulate people and to give us a false sense of reality. And of course, it could be used for good, it could be used for bad. Modern religions aren't good or bad per se. I may be agnostic on most of them or all of them, and maybe even atheistic on a few, but I don't wish to judge on this channel. We don't try to judge people for their religious beliefs on this channel, or any of their beliefs really, unless they are strictly anti-human and they're very actively actionable things that they're doing, they're actually acting in the real world. There's actually a pretty big difference between hate speech and hate action. Now, hate speech is not a thing. Check out my video. Hate speech is not a thing. But hate actions, well, they manifest themselves in the real world. If they're actually hurting people and even killing them, harming them, I can't sanction that. But hate speech, of course, is an arbitrary, subjective thing in which people can say something is hateful, even if it's just descriptive and not prescriptive. So there's a whole other world there. But moral panic is a modern religion. So we are seeing a little bit of this combined with a real world actual danger in coronavirus, in COVID-19. Because you have a situation where we don't really know what's going on. The experts can't be trusted. People like me, not an expert, seek subject matter experts, especially for deep scientific data, if you might be scrubbing for. But, you know, nobody knows what's going to happen on coronavirus. It's a great place for people to put their faith into whatever seems to be working at that moment in time. May it be something like remdesivir or hydroxychloroquine, or if it's wearing a mask, washing your hands, social distancing. We have put our faith into these methods that, you know, using common sense, you don't have to be a scientist or an expert to know that if you have something that can be transmissible from human to human, even if the WHO, the World Health Organization, may or may not have said that, they might have said the opposite, that it's not transmissible, we'll put them aside. Let's put the WHO completely aside. And I know that the Trump administration is currently on the brink of funding them again. I don't have a major problem with it as long as they learn their lesson and they a little more even-handed with how they're behaving. But we do have this big void and this situation where we have life and death. We have these moral equations. Is it more moral to wear a mask or is it less moral? And of course, masks are designed to slow the spread from you, who you may be asymptomatic or other. They're designed to slow the spread from you to others. And of course, the implication is that anybody could have it. You could be diseased. That's the idea. You may be diseased, and you should wear a mask. Or you can choose not to wear a mask, which gets increasingly more difficult as there are these lockdown orders and mandatory mask policies. But that's just current events. We're going back to the past, to July 2019, for this tweet. Finding God. So in the absence of universal truth, the devoutly secular tell post-truth stories. So in essence, when you don't have God, you create him. You create the story. You cloak it in credentialism. You run it through academia. You have it. You indoctrinate people with this information. You provide the dogma. You preach the dogma of your modern religion in the schools. Because even though religion isn't really generally welcome in school, we've had certainly so many situations where someone says you can't wear a hijab or you can't pray in school. We've certainly seen a lot of that. But hey, you know, the modern religion of social justice is just perfectly fine. It's okay if we talk about the modern religion of global warming. I learned as a youngin' that the ozone layer was depleted. There was a huge hole in the ozone layer. And of course, turns out that that was total bullshit. The modern religion of global warming is almost total bullshit. Of course, I don't purport to be unbiased on this channel. I am, of course, agnostic. And there are some elements of the modern religion that is global warming that hold true. I mean, we can't deny science. Don't be a science denier, as they tell you. But there's certainly other aspects that have been amplified unjustly. And of course, you can do your own research to figure out where you fall on that issue. Because that is one of the post-truth stories we are seeing from the devoutly secular. In the absence of God, well, we put in moral panic or global warming. We might use censorship to say what's good and bad. And of course, it's all arbitrary. It's decided by human beings. Because in their world, there is no God. There is no ultimate supreme being, a deity deciding what is morally good and what is morally or ethically, if you might say, if you're talking about rules and regulations, what is wrong. You don't have that, so you just do it and you decide for yourself, and then, well, you get enough street cred, you get the right credentials, you get a high position in an institution, and sooner or later people start to just believe you on faith. They don't look at it through a lens of reason. And especially there's a lot of incentive when you're promising moral virtue and universal truth to people. Well, of course, they're going to want to subscribe to that, especially if they see a lot of other people doing it. So in lieu of a deity's divinity and authority, we get postmodern dogma. Now, of course, as somebody that is nigh atheistic, someone that's generally agnostic, I'm kind of a Richard Feynman agnostic in that I'm essentially atheist, but I say I'm agnostic to be polite, because frankly I don't believe in God, but, technically, who am I to say? Who are you to say? No one's able to say definitively. That's why they call it faith. That's why we call it faith. So it shows a lot of hubris to say that you know better. I don't think atheists are all hubristic in that manner. I don't think it's just that. I think it's just a matter of basically science looking for empirical evidence and saying, hey, I can't see it, therefore I'm just going to have to believe. And if there's not enough, circumstantial or additional evidence, if there's not enough information, why would I just believe in something I can't see and I can't feel? It doesn't make any sense. That would disrupt my entire worldview, my entire perception of reality, to just go along with something on faith that I can't see. So I understand that mindset. But putting postmodern systems in place where we're doing things like dividing people up into categories and groups, taking all this space, all these things like science, and saying, well, there's scientism, there's all this different stuff that people do in the absence of this one tome, this one book, the Holy Bible, the Quran, whatever you're reading that's the reason why it's so powerful. Is when you're looking to find God, it's so powerful because it's a singular source. You go to the source. You have books, you have notes, you have Bibles. And it's not, we can't really say for sure what happened all those years ago. History is written by the winners. History is as good as the conscience of the person who writes it. So with the postmodern stuff, you're looking at newer systems. You're looking at 18th century, 19th century, 20th century, 21st century. Like, we literally have the people that came up with these systems on video. We have film. We have pictures of the people. So I think that kind of definitely takes a little bit of the wind out of their sails, because you don't have this divine authority figure. You have people. You realize, okay, I know the Bible was written by people, and Muhammad wrote the Quran, whoever wrote the Quran, correct me below if I'm wrong. But now we have postmodern dogma, and it's fine to have something. I consider myself a postmodernist. We're doing postmodern framing of everything. Great. It's a great tool. It's a great diagnostic. But when we start to place faith over reason and combine postmodernism and absolutism, well, we get this little thing called clown world, which basically means you're taking sort of this abstract, anything goes, everything is a construct mentality, and then applying it to this absolute physical flesh and blood reality. You're not looking at people, when you're using the modern religion of social justice, you're not looking at the people by their individuality. You're looking at them by their immutable characteristics and other things like their job, their occupation, their religion that are mutable. And saying, wait a second, you're a woman that happens to be Asian. You know, Asian in itself is kind of a little bit too broad. You could say you're East Asian, you're from a specific region of the world, and then you get into this question of, the difference between having a nationality and an ethnicity. And the fact is that people from all over the world, essentially, race is essentially a construct. We're talking postmodernism, so let's say race is essentially a construct because we're all human. Right? We're not all exactly the same, of course. There's 7+ billion of us now, and there's been many billions before. We're not all the same. But at the same time, people like to break us down by race and say, well, things are happening because of in-group preference, and people are being, they're being otherist. They're being against this man happens to be black, and he won't let white people into his establishment because, well, it's not part of his culture. It's culturally homogenous or whatever, and he wants to maintain his culture. And that's actually a great question. Like, I actually believe that we have this question of multiculturalism versus this sort of ethnic nationalism. And I don't really know if I subscribe to ethnic nationalism, but I do understand that when a country is, 90% one skin tone, we'll say, one skin tone, and naturally there's this little thing that people always forget, notably when they're talking about postmodern systems like socialism. They forget this little thing called human nature. Human nature. So sometimes we're attracted to those things that are different from us, those people, those other worlds for us to explore. We might have a little bit of out-group preference. We might have a lot of out-group preference. We might just not like to be, but here's the thing. We might not like the people we are now, so we want to change who we are. That happens. But here's the trick to avoid too much in-group preference versus out-group preference. You shrink the out-group. See, if you accept more people into your life, if you accept more perspectives, if you try to commune with more people, to share the human experience and the human condition with others, the more people you bring into your circle, the higher your empathy, the more people you understand, the more situations you've seen and therefore can navigate. And over time, if you accept people, you don't just cast them aside because of their ideology or the way they look, their skin tone or their sexuality or their gender, any of this stuff. If you just accept people for who they are and you find your tribes, we all need tribes. We're very tribal people. This tweet is about finding God, but you need to find your tribes. And the more tribes you're a part of, the more people you talk to, the smaller your outgroup gets. The smaller it gets. So you don't have as much animosity, you don't have as much prejudice when you have put yourself into more and more and more shoes. So there are some benefits to postmodern dogma as well. I know that I've usually cast it in a pejorative sense. I tend to, because I'm trying to talk about my framing this modern religion. But in reality, of course, there are places where if you need to apply censorship, that's okay, because there are certain things that are just too far, they're too destructive. Of course you can do that. Moral panic, of course people have a reason to be morally panicked. There might be certain things that are just new to them, that they don't understand. They might be going against their culture. And there might be people out there, notably children, that are more impressionable, that might not understand it, might not be as aware or self-aware to the level that the adults are. And of course, they might need a little, they might need to be coddled a little bit. They might need to be guided in a way that we don't see. But we move on to the New Testament. The New Testament, so the problem is this moving goalpost thing. The problem, if we're going to go back into problems with postmodern dogma, is the moving goalposts. Because when you have a singular book, the Quran, you can love it or you can hate it. If you love the Quran, leave me a comment below. If you hate it, also leave me a comment below. But it's a singular tome that has a singular message. There might be some contradictions in it. There might be some things that are logically inconsistent. But it's a singular thing that, millions upon billions of people can agree on in terms of a method of finding moral virtue, of leading and living a better life. But with postmodernism, essentially anything goes. Essentially anything goes. So you have people that basically just start changing the goalposts and saying, well, no, this isn't enough. We need to add this. This is another layer. Here's some more linguistic propaganda. Here's some more sophistry to help facilitate whatever goals, whatever things we're trying to persuade towards. And so, moral panic, mass hysteria, it's a New Testament, a proving ground of moral virtue, a choose-your-own Satan. So, like I said, with COVID, we have a pretty strictly defined thing. So people are using, of course, the masks and everything to virtue signal. It was inevitable, and people have divided up into subcategories. As a postmodernist, I'm used to dividing people up and figuring out where there's consistency between groups and all this stuff. I have to do it. I don't like to do it. It's hard work, but it's God's work. And I'm seeing that, a lot of the same people that would have called for censorship or had, been a bit morally heavy-handed in the past are the same people that want, wear a mask and won't even want to open the country until we have a vaccine. Now, again, it's a morally virtuous position. The fewer the people that die, the better, right? We don't want people dying. That's obvious. That's common sense. But at the same time, of course, they may ignore the fact that people die for other reasons as well. Namely, the massive, massive unemployment and all the consequences that stem from that. So, but mass hysteria does offer a proving ground because usually there's a place of chaos. Where there's chaos, it's easier for emotion to take over. And persuasion in a post-truth realm is much easier when people's emotions are all jumbled up. They don't know which way to turn. They'll look for the nearest lighthouse, the first beacon of hope. And especially if they don't have God to turn to, if they don't have a higher power to aspire to, a higher level of awareness and understanding, someone to look to, a mother figure or a father figure that can give them the power, the positivity to win, they'll turn to other people. Other people like the prophets and popes of the modern religion of moral panic. And they'll tell you, hey, if you do this, you're saving people. If you do that, you're harming things. And, hey, it might be true. It might be false. Just like what I say in these videos, it might be true, it might be false. But when you place faith over reason, it's a dicey prospect because reason is how we determine what reality truly is. We actually dig down. We get pedantic, they might say. We climb the pedant tree and find further information, more detail, and more reasons, more factors into why things happen. When it's faith, and you just say, okay, we need to be panicked. I don't know why, but this expert that I trust, this prophet of the modern religion, they say, the news says it. My friends and family are saying it. I haven't thought it through. I haven't put the time in to actually come to a solution, but I'm going to panic. And I'm going to point the finger at anybody that tries to tell me to stop, because I'm doing the right thing. By telling you to stop listening to heavy metal music, I am doing the right thing. you could become a Satanist. And so they choose their own Satan. This is a very broad statement. Choose your own. It's open-ended. Choose your own Satan. So whatever you find to be alarming or new and potentially morally damaging can become the new Satan of your modern religion. It doesn't matter what it is. There is no logical consistency because we're talking about postmodernism. We're talking about creating this construct and then just subscribing to it, going into it. And again, sometimes it might be for good and sometimes it might be for bad, but it's the system. So I hope this tweet helped you find God. Moving forward. So here's my position on transgender athletes. My position on transgender athletes is that they should have access to gendered leagues on the basis of their birth sex. Biological males have physical advantages that hormonal modulation can't mitigate. Women in professional sports shouldn't be forced to compete with former men. So I'm not going to break this down. It's just a statement. But if you have any thoughts or observations on that, please do leave me a comment below. So I think it's about time for today's sponsor, White Claw. It's crisp, refreshing. It's the hard seltzer that washes over your day. Open your maw, try a White Claw. That's the lime flavor that we all love. White Claw. It's actually really good. So our next tweet today is called Just Dudes. Just dudes. Eating ice cream with a fork. Saying weird shit in confidence. Driving to the 24-hour McDonald's. Napping on a Sunday afternoon. Playing video games. Living honestly and without regret. Dabbing blue cheese on buffalo chicken. Barbecuing with a beer, and laughing out loud. So it's sort of a slice of life tweet. Eating ice cream with a fork, of course, as my viewers may know, you may or may not know, it's a hell of a lot easier eating ice cream with a fork, especially those chunkier varieties. Have you ever done that? Try eating ice cream with a fork. I can't guarantee you'll lose weight, but it's a sweet proposition. Saying weird shit in confidence. Yeah, so there's a difference between public dialogue and private dialogue. And if you can say weird shit behind the scenes in confidence, I think we need that catharsis. I think we need that outlet as human beings to fully explore ideas and to actually say things that we can't say in public because people wouldn't understand. So in private, you can kind of get away with saying inappropriate things, being funny, being wrong. I've seen all kinds of things said in group chat that I would never, if the group chats got out and people didn't understand the contextual difference between public and private, of course, heads would roll. But it's a good, cathartic, fun thing to say weird shit in confidence, knowing that people won't share it. Driving to the 24-hour McDonald's. Hey, since coronavirus became the thing, McDonald's stock is probably up. Have you checked it? Because I know that drive-through totally the only business that didn't shutter at first was, the essentials. And I need my Whopper. Oh, I need my Whopper with cheese. And I totally miss Burger King's crispy tacos. Burger King, bring back your crispy tacos. Don't make this like the McDonald's McRib, where people demand it for years and then it comes back once a year or once every couple of years. Just have it on the menu. Otherwise, I'm not going to give you as much of my money. Napping on a Sunday afternoon. Well, after this video, I might nap on a Saturday afternoon, if you know what I mean. Of course you do. You know that it's nice to get in a nap. Although, again, you're in quarantine, working from home, all that stuff. I'm kind of napping during the day anyway. It's not as exciting. I don't have as much reason to nap, not going out and about as much. I have more energy that I can put into whatever else I'm doing. Playing video games. Just dudes playing video games. Yeah. I know there are some people out there that like to shame people for playing video games. You know who you are. But video games, well, when I was growing up, I was born in 1984. When I was growing up, video games were more of a niche. They were a nerdy thing to do. They were something that an enthusiast would do, but it wasn't really seen as mainstream. And now everybody's cell phone and everybody's smartphone, everybody has some kind of game. Even my parents played games. Everybody but my grandma, we never had a computer. But playing video games, just dudes, kind of setting the scene. Sometimes I go to Maine with my bros. We play games, we drink, we do other things. Debauchery ensues. It's great. But we're just dudes. It's just this sort of this nice, comfortable environment where people can have fun. There can be dirty jokes and confidence. This tweet kind of encapsulates this sort of like weekender vibe. These guys just getting together, guys or gals having a great time, eating ice cream with a fork, driving to the 24-hour McDonald's, probably doing some illicit substances that I don't endorse on this channel. But playing video games. The next one is a little bit more broad. Living honestly and without regret. So if we're always running from this truth about ourselves, about our world, about our reality, if we're always running, if we're not living honestly, eventually reality catches up to us and slaps us right in the face. I mean, it's not a good thing to run from it. And we don't want to have regret. Of course we have regret. We've done things in a way that we wish we could change. We could go back in time and change it. But living honestly and without regret is a beautiful ideal that I think we should all aspire to. Everyone loves dabbing blue cheese on buffalo chicken, of course. Some people also like Caesar dressing and ranch dressing on buffalo chicken. But I thought that blue cheese was the obvious choice for your buffalo chicken. And of course, when you're partying with your friends, you're going to, and I'm sure this summer we'll be doing a lot of this, barbecuing with a beer. If you're not doing it already with this beautiful spring weather we're having here in the middle of May, you'll barbecue with a beer. Just dudes barbecuing with a beer. It's fun. And laughing out loud. LOL. Lots of laughs, laughing out loud. Laughing is therapeutic. Laughing at ourselves, laughing at others, it's just a beautiful thing. And when you're with a bunch of people that you love, that you care about, and you're all laughing, you're having fun, you're eating good food, you're playing fun games. Life doesn't get too much better than the oxytocin drip of being with people you love, laughing out loud, having a great time. So that tweet doesn't really have much value in terms of critical thinking. It's just a beautiful, nice, pleasant experience. Tweets. I won't say that one. You'll have to look for that one in my Twitter history. It certainly gives you incentive to act. Some great tweets here, but they're topics that I've talked about quite a bit, and I have a number of new videos on the channel talking about some of these, so I don't want to overdo those topics. Thank you for your patience. Okay, so here is a pro tip. A pro tip for you on this beautiful Saturday. Responding rationally to a rational inquiry into one of your hyperbolic shit posts is poor form. So if you meet their rational question about your hyperbolic shit post with rationality, that is poor form. It wasn't an intellectual exercise. Check out my video. This is not an intellectual exercise. When we make it an intellectual exercise, the original intent, for example, joking, is undermined. Rational arguments may be diminished. It's best not to cross the streams. So what this is saying, responding rationally to a rational inquiry, you might think, hey, if somebody is using science, and they're using reason, they're operating with the scientific method, they're asking great questions on their epistemological journey, they're trying to work things out, make the calculations correct, they're asking rational, reasonable questions. You might think, yeah, what's the problem with that, Jeff Tidwell? Well, the problem is when somebody is being very hyperbolic, or they're using a postmodern framing of something, or they're joking around. They might be simply joking around, and you're obviously looking for an effect. You're not looking to be absolutely truthful per se. You might be trying to make people think and imagine. In persuasion, the art and science of persuasion, a lot of it is putting an image or a thought into people's heads to ponder over, to make the decision themselves about how they feel about it. But you leave some gray area so that it's not strictly defined, and we can actually let our minds fill in the gaps. So there's certain people that say things more for effect. You want to have an effect on people. And it might be a good effect, it might be an effect where there's no benefit in terms of monetary. There's no like backdoor way for them to take your money or anything like that. But it's looking for a specific effect, maybe being funny, maybe putting this idea forth and letting people think about it. But when you have a hyperbolic shit post and it's not an intellectual exercise, but somebody is trying to say, well, I'm going to bring intellectualism from over here. It's totally separate. I'm going to bring it over and bring it to your hyperbolic shit posts, and I'm going to tell you what's what. Because even though it's clear you're using a lot of hyperbole, you might be trying to make people laugh, you might be trying to make people think, here's something you need to know. Here's the rational answer. Here's the reasonable answer. And it might be perfectly 100% true, what they're saying. But it might not be the point. What's the point that you're trying to make? And are they just trying to unravel your point by saying, well, no, let me apply. You might be talking figuratively or using very impressionistic, image-based language, very persuasion-based. I'm just going to take literalism and put it in with your figuratism and make a mess. Because science, fact, truth, period. Happens all the time. It was not an intellectual exercise that you were performing. And when we make it one, the original intent is undermined. So you're basically just overriding what was originally intended. So I might recommend, in some cases, you might want to engage a person like this that tries to mix realms, bring things together that don't belong together. I might recommend just ignoring them or giving them a short answer. Saying it was joking might be dumb, but whatever works, whatever floats your boat, whatever answer you'd like, I'm not making any judgment. The rational arguments may be diminished as well. Best not cross the streams. So, it's not saying the rational argument they're making will be diminished. It's saying that it may be diminished. Because, frankly, if somebody's trying to expand minds to get people to think outside the box, and then you reintroduce this thing that's taking something literally or saying, well, no, I'm not going to go along with it, I'm going to give you pushback on it, that's fine. We have freedom of speech, we have free speech as a human right, and I like to, I'm not putting any limits on dialogue, I'm not trying to censor anybody, I'm just saying that it's poor form. It's a pro tip. It's a recommendation. It's a prescription more or less. It's not necessarily a hard and fast rule, a hard rule. It's just a little thing that I would say I've seen. It can be mildly frustrating sometimes when you're trying to have fun, you're framing things a certain way, and then somebody tries to unravel what you're doing with the one string that might be there. That's fine. It's all well and good. They might get entertainment value out of that, but it's still poor form because it ignores the context of what's going on. And like I said about private and public, if you ignore the context of when and how something was said, well, it changes the meaning. It changes the meaning. So there's that one. 2 more tweets for you today. So here is a named tweet called Copycat Contagion. And this dives into some heavy topic. Heavy topic. Feeling parched? Today's sponsor, White Claw. Copycat Contagion. Some suggest we are amid an epidemic of stochastic terrorists stoking random, imprecise targets, which are groups or individuals, to perform wanton acts of violent terror. Suicide and homicide also persuade random targets. Media coverage influences how many will copy. Copycat Contagion. So, this is touching about how media assigns our opinions, media directs our reality. I call media the gatekeepers of reality. Like my video, Media, the Gatekeepers of Reality. Check it out on BitChute. So, some suggest we are amid an epidemic of stochastic terrorists stoking random, imprecise targets, which would be groups or individuals, to perform wanton acts of violent terror. What this means is that there are a stochastic terrorist. You can look it up on Wikipedia or check out Google. They might have the answers you're looking for. But in essence, it's somebody that goes after a specific group, and they might be putting out what they call dog whistles. I have several videos on that, to stoke people or groups to perform violence. So basically, it's like they say something or they do something, they put out some kind of propaganda or something, and then this is supposed to say, incite people to perform an act of violence, to do something that might be to the benefit or part of the goal of that stochastic terrorist group. They say that the president, Donald John Trump, is stoking terrorists. Stochastic, he's getting white supremacists, white nationalists, KKK members, he's getting all these people together. He's giving them dog whistles. And they're going to go and they're going to perform these heinous, otherist, hateful acts because the stochastic terrorist leader is putting out these signals and putting out this messaging to get people to act in an evil, unforgivable way. And of course, that's the common one because, Orange Man bad, of course. But we've also seen it all over the place. People say you shouldn't say this because you might get people to act in a certain way. They're just lemmings. You're a Pied Piper. And you're going to get people, you're going to force them to act in a way that they weren't going to before. You're going to give them, they were already on the edge. This is what they'll say. They're already on the edge. And now you, with your influence, your persuasion as it were, you have stoked their hearts and minds to perform wanton acts of violence. That's you. Whatever you said, whatever you did, whatever, I don't know, infrared messaging you put out, I can't see it. You put it out, and now people are going to act. Now, of course, the fringes of society are always going to be susceptible to this. If you're already living in a world where you have irrational hatred and fear for a person, a place, a thing, whatever it might be, an idea, a concept, yes, you can be easily manipulated. We're emotional, irrational beings. We can be manipulated. Our opinions are assigned, as I talk about in my tweet, Based 10. That was an idea that I learned from Scott Adams. But basically, this idea is that people don't really have their own individual agency. There's a bit of a third person effect. Other people are acting in a way where I know what they know and don't know, and I'm going to say things about them. I'm going to try to pretend I can read their mind. I know everything that they know and they don't know. It's easy. They call that third person effect. They're not aware enough. So the point, though, was about the copycatism, because they have this idea of copycat killers. Copycat killers are people that see, a murder or some other act of crime or violence on the news, and then they go, they might not have much going on in their life, they might be clinically insane, they might have a cluster B personality disorder or some other kind of personality disorder, and they're looking to mirror, they're letting the emotions of what's happening in front of them reflect, and they become what they're seeing. These are just psychological, psychiatric conditions. We're talking about crazy people. Not to be insensitive. Crazy people or people that are down and out, depressed, don't have much going for them. The idea is that they might be on the edge of like, yeah, I could be a sociopath or a psychopath. I've been killing cats and dogs. I've been harvesting their organs and stuff, but I've been wanting to level up. Ever since I saw that show Dexter, I've been wanting to level up to killing people. And now I saw this killer on TV. If he can do it, I can do it. Yeah. And that is a psychological phenomenon. We do have a little bit of that. It's called copycatism, or whatever it's called, however you want to frame or characterize it. It's the copycat effect. But I wanted to say here that suicide and homicide on the news persuade random targets as well, persuade people to act. These targets act. In the context of this tweet, they act. Media coverage influences how many will copy. So the media effectively is our window to reality, into the world, in a great sense. Like, we have our nearby reality here and there. In our world, we have our job, we have our family, our friends, we have where we go on the internet. But frankly, when we're spending time watch, check out my tweet, time watching, future video coming. We spend our time watch, our screen time, our eyeball time with the internet. We don't actually spend time crossing the globe, going to every lab, looking at all the experiments. We don't have the intimate knowledge of everything that happens. We don't know anything really outside of what's in the room. What's happening here. The only way we know more is our media, our TV, our radio. Radio was an old technology developed around the 1920s. You know what radio is, but for the newer viewers, radio is a thing. Check it out. I went to broadcasting school. But basically, the media determines our reality because it's our window into what's happening outside of our immediate purview. And so when you're talking about copycatism as it pertains to people committing acts of terrorism or murder, wanton acts of violent terror, I would say that suicide and homicide also persuade people. If you see it on the news, if somebody's depressed, they're sitting at home and they got nothing left, and they find out, oh my God, this celebrity, this person that was a role model that we looked up to, almost a parental figure to many, killed himself. Anthony Bourdain killed himself. And I don't have anything to live for. So, if he can do it, I can do it. That's a little bit of a fear as well. The media, the way it reports things, the way it amplifies certain messages and de-emphasizes others, it's very irresponsible. Like, they should take responsibility, of course. But in this world, I don't like to say just because someone said something means that people have to commit to doing it or copy it or whatever. I don't like to subscribe to this stochastic terrorism and all these things that say, like, oh, if just because someone persuasive talks, there has to be a cult of personality that forms. It happens. It's going to happen. It always happens. We have this. You know, we have people we follow. We have politicians and celebrities and, you know, institutional figures that we turn to and that we trust and that we love. We have a lot of familiarity with them. Can't speak today, familiarity. And unfortunately, suicide and homicide, they persuade the random targets. It's not just someone talking, it's literally seeing it on the news, and some people will be inspired to act, and the media should be careful, again, about what their messaging is and how much anger and fear they are going to provoke. I know it's good for persuasion. I know it's good for getting people and on a macro scale to do what we want them to do. Whatever you're trying to accomplish, you're trying to sell something, it's always about follow the money with this stuff, right? When you have the modern religion of institutions, and that includes media, academia, media, and state, of course there's going to be incentive with a religion. There's going to be something to grab onto, and you know, but media coverage influences how many will copy, and this is more just descriptive. I just wanted to put it out there and say that yeah, while I don't think it's a good thing to default to the third person sort of people don't have agency, they're just easily manipulated effect, it still happens. So it's something we need to be cognizant of. One more tweet for you today. And I'll just say this tweet really quick as a part of what I just said. Video games are a dopamine delivery service wrapped around an aggression acceptance algorithm. They can be bloody addictive. As with the internet, they have helped millions find a safe and fun place to let off some steam. Video games save lives. Bigly. So that goes hand in hand with this idea of catharsis. Well, it doesn't go so much with the last tweet, but it goes more with a previous one. So I'll say really briefly here on this that video games as a dopamine delivery service wrapped around an aggression acceptance algorithm. We are human beings, especially males, we have aggression. Females, we have aggression. Whatever gender or sexuality you may have, whatever background you may have, we all have aggression. And we have to get it out somehow. Males have this thing called testosterone, and it really riles us up. We have adrenaline running through our pores. And video games provide dopamine, but they also provide catharsis for all the aggression. Instead of punching somebody else, or even punching a boxing punching bag at the gym, you can go into a video game and get out that sort of desire to stomp on a Goomba, or, you know, dominate in a game like Rocket League, or another game where you're shooting people or doing something that you never normally would do in the real world. You wouldn't want to let out your aggression in the real world, and you have no desire or reason to. You don't hate other people, you don't want to hurt anybody. But yet you do have a primal instinct. You have a primal instinct to divide and conquer and to spread your seed and to spread out and destroy and dominate and win. And to hit things, because we are just aggressive creatures. We are aggressive creatures. If things aren't going well, if I were recording this video and I didn't care about optics, and I made a mistake, I would just smash something, right? And that would be me getting out my aggression. I had to hit something. I had some built-up aggression over something that was an injustice in my limited mammal brain, my lizard brain and my mammal brain. And I went ahead and I said, I'm going to hit something. Oh, that feels so good. Why does that feel so good? Maybe it's because we are human beings, irrational creatures. We have human nature. And sometimes we just got to let off some steam. So they're addictive dopamine delivery services with aggression acceptance. We have to accept the aggression. We can't hide from it. It's there. The more you try to suppress something that is still coming either way, the more it explodes at the end. If someone never lets out any of their steam, any of their aggression, unless they're a monk, if they're a Buddhist monk, if there's somebody that is meditating every day and has learned other methods for addressing aggression, a video game can certainly provide the catharsis they need. And people are saying that violence is down, domestic violence is down, gun crime is down in the past 30 or 40 years. And you can't directly ascribe that to video games, but you can say that the advent of the internet and of video games as again, it's no longer niche, it's a common thing, allows people an outlet to let out aggression and help manage their emotions better. Like I said, as with the internet, they have helped millions find a safe and fun place to let off some steam. Video games save lives bigly. So leave a comment below if you have any thoughts on that. And we're going to move on to one more tweet. I'd love to see Disney reboot Heavyweights, the 1995 comedy classic from my childhood, but they probably won't. The SJW outrage would be palpable. I want my Heavyweights. Algorithms manufacture consent with plausible deniability. The gun shot on its own. And I'll finish up here with a refresh of a video of mine called The Phases of Censorship and Other Stories. Check it out on YouTube. So the phases of censorship. Number 1, self-censorship. You have a choice. Number 2, passive censorship. The mob chooses. Number 3, active censorship. Authority chooses. So, just a real brief run-through of the phases of censorship. Number 1 being self-censorship, where you have a choice. So you can choose to say something or choose not to say something. It doesn't really mean you're censoring yourself. If you were going to say something and then you went, it's not to my best judgment, it would be better not to say that. We don't have to call that censorship. You know, we can call it censorship if we'd like, but it's your choice. It's your choice. No one else decides what you should and shouldn't say. You're making the judgment call for yourself. Because we all have our own voice, our own message to say. I have my advocacy, and I have this channel, and I say things that may be right, may be wrong, maybe they're right to me and wrong to you. But we have the choice to self-censor, and only the pressure that we might be judged in a way we don't like by our peers and loved ones. But then we get into passive censorship, where basically people tell others not to listen to you. Or they say, you know, we're going to choose. The mob chooses. The mob chooses who can speak. We're going to do this by committee, okay? And we're going to mass report you. We're going to brigade you. I have a new video out, Hate Speech and the Modern Religion of Censorship. I talk a little bit more about how one of the methods they use, they call whatever they want, hateful content or whatever, and then they censor you off, and then I have to do a shout out to the band. So it happens. But the mob chooses, and of course, they might also say you're not qualified. They'll give some other reason. They'll ascribe a reason for why you can't speak, and then they might go ahead and tell people and just try to make an environment of, while you're being censored, we're going to block out people that have this ideology or this viewpoint or have this position on this issue and that position on that issue. They're going to do it that way. They're not going to do a hard censoring, but sort of just muddy the waters, create an environment where people just don't listen to you because there's been so much negative messaging about you. No matter what you're saying, it doesn't matter. It can be any side of politics, it can be anything, any philosophical position, whatever it might be. They choose. The mob chooses. And of course, if it is their, we have this thing in the modern public square, we also have this thing called households. And when XKCD talks about free speech, they're talking about household, where you can choose, who's on your Facebook feed, your Twitter feed, who is allowed to be in your private forum or your subreddit. Of course, people just don't have the right to come in and be assholes or go way, way off topic, of course. But at the same time, you need to have some control over that. You need to have control. So, the mob chooses, and sometimes that's for the best. But we're talking more in a broad public square manner, where people are unjustly censored by the popes and prophets, and sometimes the disciples of the modern religion of censorship. They're made into martyrs by these people. Kicked out, their voices suppressed, they've silenced, they've met their match. They're God of that modern religion. But the third step is the most severe, active censorship. And this is where authority chooses. They just shut you down and they silence you, and there's no coming back. Sometimes they go even a step further. They don't just deplatform you, they deperson you. They say, look, not only did I not like what you were saying, I don't like your messaging, I don't like your propaganda, I don't like whatever you're doing out here. I don't like what your viewpoint is. Well, on top of that, I don't want you to bank anymore, so we're going to debank you. Okay? And I'm going to make it impossible for you to be web hosted. All the web hosts are going to get together and say, well, I'm not going to let you have your own individual website. You were kicked off of Gab for being too crazy, too out there. Kicked off of Twitter, Facebook, kicked off of Reddit, wherever you are. All these bastions of free speech. And now, we're not going to let you find anywhere else to go. So they deperson. But active censorship is just the craziest, because at a point, we're giving so much power to these authorities, so much power to the mob as well, to just say, this person doesn't belong in society. And, there are some people that, most of them are in mental homes now. There are some people that don't really belong in society. Okay? People that are not just hate speech, but hate action. People that actually go ahead and use every waking moment they have to kill and to hurt, to rape and to murder and to steal and all this stuff. We have prisons for a reason. We have this stuff. But somebody that just happens to be a political commentator, or someone that's a philosopher, or a comedian, or an entertainer, or somebody, whoever it might be, just a person that happens to work at Tedeschi's, they shouldn't be completely censored unless they've done something wrong. But we've seen Alex Jones and others, for the bigger names in the media, the mollusk media, the middle media. We've seen Alex Jones, InfoWars, taken off of everything at once over a year ago. Now, one reason I do these tweet videos, thank you for watching to my about 95-minute crowd, thank you. One of the reasons we do these tweet videos the way we do, in that I go back to, for example, July 2019 and August 2019, as I am here, I go back to give you a little more perspective on what was going on a year ago or 8 months ago, because that way you have a broader understanding. If you haven't been following all this stuff day by day, and the chances are if you're watching this channel you have been following most of it. But if you haven't been watching it day by day, I provide you further context, further perspective, and go back to what we were talking about a year ago. Because, yeah, it might be old news to some, but in a sense also, it's more true than ever. So authority chooses active censorship, and at that point you're essentially dead in the water. Everybody's against you, and that's where we have these alternative services like Gab and Minds, Parler, Telegram, and so forth. Okay, we also have Library, other sites as well, video hosting, Brighteon, all this stuff, where people that were censored or silenced or had their content removed or demonetized can find that income stream. Because again, as we started this video talking about the future, what happens after the information age, what happens when we all have access to computers and it's our primary resource, how do we work in this new world economy post-COVID-19? You gotta have a voice online. You gotta have a presence. Just because someone doesn't like your political stances or you've said a joke that didn't quite fall correctly into their ears, they didn't hear it right, that doesn't mean it's grounds for you to be completely banished, depersoned, and then debanked so you can't even participate anywhere in the economy. It doesn't make any sense. So that's another video. The Phases of Censorship and Other Stories. Definitely check it out on my channel. And that's it for the video today. So I thank you very much for watching. Thank you for tuning in to Jeff Tidwell's channel. And as always, I can be found on Twitter at RealJeffTidwell. I'm also on Gab, Minds, Parler, Telegram, and Instagram for some of my art. Of course, if you enjoyed the content, please do hit like and subscribe and tap the little bell for notifications. If you didn't enjoy the content, tap the downvote button and give me a little help with the algorithm there, of course. And as I always say, everything I said today might be right. Or, everything I said today might be wrong. Perhaps some of it was right, and some of it was wrong. So, to my YouTube and BitChute subscribers, thank you very much for making it this far into the video. Segments will be released later from this content, way down the road. Again, time delayed for more context. And I, once again, thank you for watching, and I hope I see you next time. Be safe, everybody.